From full moon parties in early 70s to one of the most iconic destinations in Bali, the Oberoi Hotel is an example of what true luxury hospitality is all about. My name is Elena Makogan, and this is my podcast, Through the Looking Glass, Bali, Hospitality and Beyond, where we explore behind the scene of hospitality industry through the stories of its leaders. Let's go!
For over 50 years, the hotel has represented the unique culture, atmosphere and heritage of Balinese traditions, preserving them in its core. Today, we meet its general manager, Mr. John Halpin, who has been leading the hotel since 2012, guiding a dedicated team, many of whom have been with the hotel since its early days. We talk with John about his leadership journey, the importance of preserving Balinese culture, and how the hotel adapts to the evolving hospitality landscape while ensuring every guest feels special.
Thank you for having us here today, John.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Let's start with your journey. What leads you to where are you today?
Oh gosh. Well, I grew up in Massachusetts in the States and started to work in hospitality from an early age. My first steps into the business were a culinary journey. Mm-hmm. I went to chef school and then apprenticed as a chef. And then after chef school, I ended up working at a restaurant in the suburbs of Boston. And I saw that most of the people in the front of the house were the ones who were making most of the money. And I decided to approach the owner and tell him that I wanted to transition into the front of the house from the kitchen. And he said, "Oh, you studied to be a chef. Why would you want to do that?" And I said, "Well, who better to tell our guests how the food is prepared than somebody who's actually done it?" And he said, "Okay, you're on." And then I moved to the front of the house and started saving my money, and was still living at home with my mother and my two brothers and my sister. My older sister was already out of the house, and my father had passed away when I was in high school. So I remained living at home and saving my money and supporting my mom, being kind of the cook of the house and buying groceries for the family. That was my rent. And eventually I came home one night and my mother had my bank book and she said, "What are you going to do with all this money?" And I said, "What are you doing with my bank book?" And she said, "You're going to go back to school." And so I enrolled in Florida International University in Miami in a hospitality management program. And I had an aunt and uncle who lived in Florida, so I assumed their residency, which is questionable these days. You wouldn't be able to do it, I don't think. But more or less, being an orphan because my father had passed away, my aunt and uncle offered to have me come and become a resident of Florida, and I got in-state tuition and I was paying for college on my own. And I can say that was really a lucky break for me because after hospitality school in Miami, I was recruited to go and work at a hotel in New York. And prior to that, as I mentioned, I was a restaurant guy, but I had the opportunity to go and work at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. Mm-hmm. That was my first job out of hotel school. So that, I think, is really one of the flashpoints of my journey into hospitality.
Wow. How did the story with Indonesia and overseas
So
begin?
it actually, it stems from my New York days. So eventually I ended up working for Regent Hotels in New York at the Mayfair Regent. And Regent Hotels was a different animal than it is today. There's a new Regent in Canggu. Regent has gone through many different changes since the days I worked for them. I worked for them in the 80s and early 90s. And the Four Seasons here in Bali was actually being built as a Regent. And as I mentioned, it was a Hong Kong-based company. It was run by a man named Bob Burns. And there were only three in the US. They had the Mayfair Regent New York, Mayfair Regent Chicago, and the Regent Beverly Wilshire, which everybody knows who've seen the movie with Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman. That was the Regent Beverly Wilshire. So in the 90s, that brand was swallowed up by Four Seasons, and so any projects that were underway, like the Four Seasons here in Jimbaran, what is now the Four Seasons in New York, was being designed by IMPay on 57th Street. All of those became Four Seasons, which were Regent hotels in the pipeline. So yeah, that actually had its connection to me. A fellow I worked with at the Mayfair Regent, at the same time we worked together in New York. We left New York around the same time, and he said he wanted to go live in Hong Kong before Britain gave it back to China. And I wanted to go back to my New England roots, and so I ended up moving to Kennebunkport, Maine, which is northeast coast of the United States. And I was running a Relais and Chateau bed and breakfast. I was the assistant innkeeper to a husband and wife who owned it. And they would go on a fancy holiday every year in the winter months, and I remember they would leave shortly after the New Year and come back just before Valentine's Day, which is a big restaurant day in the United States. And one year they came back from their trip and they said, "John, we met a friend of yours in Thailand." And it was my friend who said he was going to Hong Kong, had made his way to Thailand. He was working at the Amanpuri. And when they returned, they said, "You know, we bumped into a friend of yours and he wants you to get in touch." And they kind of reconnected us. And back in those days, nobody had email addresses or mobile phones. So I think we had a phone call, with the time difference between the East Coast United States and Asia. It was midnight for me and noon for him. And that was the kind of first connection for me to Asia. And a few years later, he became involved with the Oberoi when we were building our hotel on Lombok. And my phone began to ring again. In the middle of the night, I was getting phone calls, and I said, why do you keep calling me? And then I think it was three different times he called me. And on the third call, I said, "You know, I'm really happy you've got this great job, but why do you keep calling me? It's the middle of the night here." And he said, "Don't you get it? I'm trying to get you to come out here and help me open this place." And I had never been to Asia. He had convinced Mr. Oberoi that I was the man, and he told me to get on a plane and come out here. And I came out to Bali, I think for 10 days. And I came to this hotel, and I went to see the project in Lombok, just a day trip, go over in the morning, come back in the afternoon. And then I sat in this hotel for a week, waiting for Mr. Oberoi to meet me. And every day I would put on my suit and wait for the phone to ring. And they met me an hour before I went to the airport. And I'll never forget Mr. Oberoi, his main concern with me being an American was, and being considered for food and beverage manager, his main concern was that he was afraid that maybe I hadn't been exposed to a lot of international cuisines. And then I reminded him that I lived on the Upper East Side of Manhattan for about 8 years, and that I could eat in any country I wanted any night of the week. And he was surprised at my answer, and there were other people in the room that when I was being interviewed, and he looked around and he said, "He's right." And I went back to the States. I got my plane that night. It was a long journey home. And I honestly didn't think that I was going to get the job. And a few weeks later, the phone rang again, and they were asking me when I could come. So I said, "Please give me 6 weeks to wrap things up here and discuss with my family." And yeah, pretty much I threw my life into 2 suitcases and moved halfway around the world. And that was in 1996. And initially I thought it was just going to be a 2-year contract, which is what I signed up for. And I enjoyed my time in Lombok, and I was there for 4 years. And then there were some riots in Lombok in January 2000. It was a different Indonesia. Things were changing rapidly after the monetary crisis. And then Suharto was no longer the president, and then they had an interim president, and then they had their first elected president in many, many years, or the first ever was Gustor. And things were changing in the government, and there were some riots in Lombok that precipitated me being offered a job here. So I moved from Lombok to Bali in January 2000 and became the resident manager of this hotel. And I was here for about a year and a half, and then I was offered the job to go back to Lombok and take my friend's job. And my friend was being moved to another Oberoi in Egypt to go open the hotel there. So I went back to Lombok in 2001 and remained the general manager there until 2005. And I thought after 9 years with the Oberoi, it was time to spread my wings a bit. And I was offered a job to go work at the newly opened Como Hotel in Paro, Bhutan. So I left Indonesia for 3.5 years and was in Bhutan with Como Hotels and Resorts. And the opportunity came with Como for me to return to Bali. And I came back to Bali and was the area general manager for Como Shambhala Estate and Uma Ubud. And I remained there until 2012. And then the phone rang again one day. And it was Mr. Oberoi. And he had come to visit me in Bhutan. And while I was in Ubud, whenever any of the Oberoi family were here on the island, they would make time and come and visit my hotel, have lunch, and just check in on me. And I never ever dreamed that I would return to the Oberoi again. But when the phone rang that day in 2012, I realized that it was nice to work for another company and to see other places in the world. But I was really impressed, having the contrast, impressed how Oberoi valued its people. And it really was an easy decision to make when they asked me to come back to the Oberoi Bali. It was an easy decision to come back. That plus, I prefer the sea over the mountains.
Oh. Oberoi started as the family business originally, right?
Correct.
In India, and then it's been here in Bali, one of the first hotels in Seminyak, right? It's 1973.
So the history of the property is the property was built in 71, and it was originally built as a private club, and it was called the Kayu Aya Club. And again, it was a different Indonesia at that time, and I think there were some investors and some investments got spoiled, and there was whoever was starting the project and left some people holding the bag, and there were loans out from Citibank in Jakarta, and the Oberoi, this property ended up being auctioned in 1978. And at that time the Oberoi had a hotel in Singapore, and they had in Mr. Oberoi, MS Oberoi, the founder, instructed, I think he had been here, I think he had attended the property, had been to a wedding or some event here on the property, and so he knew of it. And when he heard it was being auctioned, he instructed the general manager from Singapore to come down and attend the auction. And he introduced himself to the two highest bidders, and they entered into a business arrangement to become partners with them. So they would remain owners, as you know, Indonesia has laws that a certain percentage needs to be owned by Indonesians. So they entered into an agreement, and we have a joint venture company here with Oberoi being shareholder and Balinese family. From that auction in 78, there were two families. One of those families are still our partners today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So interesting. It's been a long history of like full moon parties, right? And then people who was traveling from Goa through Bali,
Yes.
and then back to Europe, and now it's representing the heritage and the history of actually Balinese culture, right? So it's the shift from that state to what it is now.
So actually the original architect was a man named Peter Muller. He was the architect of this property. And he was a real kind of Baliophile. He had his own home here in Ubud. And he was a renowned architect, Australian architect. And through living here and spending a lot of time in Bali, he was observing a lot of the building styles of the Balinese. And so when Oberoi, he was the original architect of this place, and when Oberoi came in 1978, they re-engaged with him to kind of refine their property. And you know, it at the time it was built, it was probably one of a kind resort. You know, it was the only one in the world that had this kind of, you know, style of cottages and the amphitheater and you know, we've held on to those roots, and that's been our strength throughout the years, because, you know, I believe that this was the inspiration for Adrian Zeka to start all of the Aman properties. You know, he and Mr. Oberoi were real contemporaries.
How fast everything is changing now. And we are in the constant run for some new experiences, new atmospheres, new vibes, new environments. People cannot, you know, proceed one thing, they're already willing to get something else.
Right.
The Oberoi standing firm on its values and what it was 30 years ago and what it is now.
Yeah, I think
Preserving this.
that's our strength. You know, that, you know, we've been, over the years it has been criticized that, you know, the Oberoi hasn't changed, but in the long run it's become our strength, because people see the value in the historical integrity of the property, the link it has to Balinese culture, not only in the architecture, but, you know, in the staff uniforms. They're all very authentically Balinese. We invite guests to attend the temple ceremonies when we have them. A couple weeks ago during Nipi, we had our own Ogo Ogo parade inside the hotel for the guests, and lots of guests joined, and you know, they had a really nice time. And I think it's important when people come to a place like Bali that a resort like ours becomes a bridge to the culture for them. Because if you just want to come and lay on a beach, you can do that in Bali. If you just want to come and lay by the pool. But I think some of the hotels that have come along in the past 20 years, you could wake up in the middle of the night and not know where you are. Where when you're staying here, you definitely know you're in Bali. You know, and I think, you know, at every corner that you know, go around, there are signs that say, oh, yes, you're in Bali. You know, and Bali is such a unique place.
True.
And for Indonesia, it really is the goose that laid the golden tourism egg. And I'm glad to see that the Minister of Tourism is trying to develop other parts of Indonesia, because the country is so diverse. And as much as we all love Bali, something's got to give. You know, the infrastructure needs to keep up with the development, and unfortunately the infrastructure, you know, you live on the island, is not keeping pace with the development.
True. Considering the amount of the development, especially which is happening too fast.
Correct.
I think to catch up with the infrastructure development, so it's way more behind. You mentioned already a little bit about the family tide and family feeling in the hotel, and which was established from the founders, right? There is this famous quote about that you're taking care about your team and your team will take care about your guest, right? How do you taking care about your team? So,
well, you know, there's a quote from Mr. Oberoi that is in his book, and it very simply says, you can build a hotel out of gold, but the true value of the hotel is in its people. And I think because I live here on site, and you know, I'm a bachelor, the staff of the hotel are my family. You know, they're here day in, day out, and they take care of me. And I honestly feel that my philosophy is in order for your staff to look after your guests, you need to look after your staff. You know, and happy staff equal happy guests. And you know, I think it is important that there's a family feeling. I mean, Balinese family is very strong to them. And this hotel is an extension of their families. I have some people working in the hotel whose grandparents worked here. So there's, a third generation connection to the hotel. And it's a nice feeling. And of course it's full of the sadnesses as well. We had one of our team members passed away last week. He was here for 30 some odd years. He was here when I was the resident manager in 2000. And it was sad to go and express condolences to his family. And it also made me happy that while I was there, I ran into so many other people who had retired from here, people from the same Banjar that were all there. And as sad as it was, we also had a little bit of a reunion with some people who have left there, retired, and one of them's son is working here at the moment, and it was mixed emotions. Like I said, sad event when somebody passes away, but it was also so lovely to see so many people coming together as a family, and people who no longer work here but still have a connection to here.
Right, still have a good relationships with each other. How many people is it working here?
Approximately 200 plus some contract staff. Our landscaping team is outsourced, but still very much a part of us. Security is outsourced because it just makes sense when you have a labor union that the security team isn't part of the labor union. And then we work quite closely with a lot of the hotel schools here. So as part of anyone's training curriculum, they have to do a 6-month training program specialized in either housekeeping, front office, culinary. So we work quite closely with the schools, and we interview the students as we would any employee that we would be considering for a full-time position. And it's a good program for us because the Oberoi also has a school in India called the Oberoi Center for Learning and Development, OCLD. And through working with the schools here, and then when we identify what we deem as potentially good employees for the future or potentially good managers, then we can develop them up to a point where we feel confident to send them off to India and do the 2-year program. And then they come back as entry-level managers and then work their way up.
Wow. How about you? So you've been working through US and then Lombok, Bali to Bhutan, and then coming back. How all of this experience, like through the different culture, religion, languages, right? How did it all influence your leadership style?
Well, I think most importantly, and I think it's a very important thing when you're working here with the Balinese or any other culture as a foreigner, I think it's humbling, and I think it's very important when we come from any outside influences that we respect the cultures where we're coming to, that we learn from it. And I remember when I first came here and met Balinese for the first time as an American and being exposed to American culture and then meeting Balinese people, my initial reaction was, what are they after? What's the angle here? Why are they so nice? It says a lot about where I came from. And that in itself was a learning curve for me to learn that, wow, they really are just nice. with no ulterior motive to be nice. They're just genuinely, I think, some of the nicest people on the planet. And I found the same to be true when I was in Bhutan, although the Bhutanese are a little bit more guarded. But I have to say, I think that was mainly because the population of Bhutan is 1/10 of what it is on this island, the whole country. And the amount of tourism coming into that place was not at the extent it is now. So they were a little bit more suspicious or guarded of foreigners. But I equally had a wonderful experience learning about their culture and Their language I'll never learn.
This must
Not,
be
I've learned Indonesian, some Balinese words, but in Bhutan the language is called Dzongkha, and it's very, very complicated.
Yeah, there is also a lot of dialects, right, what they're using. Yeah. So how about here in Bali and in Lombok? Can you understand the dialects?
Yeah, I speak some Sasak words,
Okay.
and I also speak some Balinese words, so yeah, I can get by. I think, actually, Lombok, living in Lombok first, in the time that I was there in the 90s, I learned Indonesian out of necessity more than want. You know, it made my life much easier to learn the language, especially when I was outside of the hotel. But it was, it's a very symbiotic relationship because, people have to, you're teaching them and they're teaching you at the same time. So
Okay.
I think it goes hand in hand, especially when you're working hospitality. You need to teach the staff how to speak proper English. I remember early days at the hotel, somebody walked into the cafe and it said there was a group of rooms who were traveling with each other, and somebody came down to the cafe in the morning and said to one of the waiters, "Did you see my friend?" He said, "No, sorry, sir, I did not see your friend pass away." Meaning, I did not see him pass by. So funny things like that,
Yeah, but I think this is the openness, right?
Yeah.
To the culture, one of the quality I think what we as a foreigners first of all have to develop in ourselves is to be very open to everything what's happening here and just
and then funny things, can happen. Somebody called the front desk one day and asked for an adapter, and 20 minutes later somebody was standing outside the door with a doctor. I said, "No, I wanted an adapter, not a doctor."
What would you call your main quality as a general manager? What helping you to run the hotel smoothly?
I have to say I'm not really comfortable talking about myself and saying good things about myself.
But for the leader, maybe not about yourself, but as a leader.
Well, I think being part of the team, and the value that I place in my team. That's, I would say, my strength is my team, and I think any good leader has to surround themselves with good people, and that's what I've tried to do, is surround myself with a good team and try to build them up when I can, and try to keep them when I can. And I mean, I'll be honest, if one of my managers came to me and said that they wanted to leave to go to another great hotel, I don't think I would stand in their way. But if they tried to leave here to go to a hotel that was not as good, I would stand in their way and say, "You're not making the right decision."
So it's more like a father.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, I think it's important that you nurture good people around you.
Right. One of the value of the Oberoi is to make every guest feel special, right? That's everything about the guest here. The trends are changing. The customers' behavior is also changing quite a lot, especially if we're talking about last, let's say, 10 years.
Yes.
How do you feel it here, and how do you adapting to the new choices?
So I think we're a little bit at a crossroads with all of this, especially where everything's moving to online and AI, and there's less and less human interaction, and I think it's really important that we don't lose the human touch, even though there are certain points where you no longer connect with the guest, like a lot of our older guests who've been visiting this hotel for years and years will connect directly with reservations or me and start a conversation by email or phone call, and so that's we've got human interaction right from the get-go. And then we've got this other client who's made their booking on online, and then we don't know where they're coming in. We don't know if they want airport pickup or anything. unless they connect with the hotel and so whenever we have that human contact, that's the point where we have the opportunity to go beyond, to try to show them that that Oberoi is different, or we can offer something special. Mr. Vikram Oberoi calls it creating moments of delight. So I think that's the biggest challenge going ahead, is that more and more people are wanting to do things with their device. They want to order room service with their device. They want to do everything online, and it's removing the human element from it, and so I think it's harder to get a moment of delight from your tablet than it is from a human being. So whenever we have those opportunities to have human interaction, which is of course when you're here in the hotel, that's I think where we can make the difference and try to outshine.
Yeah, the moment of delight, it's a very well said, because with everything also, I think for us also, we're demanding everything very fast right now, right? We want the replies next second.
Yeah.
We want the service to be happening just like that. But with the people, right, involving in the processes, the delays and things can happen. And there is a beauty in it as well, right? So like, this is quite concerning, where we're running after the new trends, and like, where is the moment we have to stop? Right? Is any? I'm sure there is a tons of stories in here, but would you maybe name one or two which become a legend?
I think one of the stories I've told over and over again, because I think it's so funny. It was during the days when we were doing room service training, in the early days of the Oberoi Lombok, and there was a lady from England, and she was staying in one of the villas, and she had ordered her breakfast to be delivered. You know, they hang out there, make their choices, and then we have a little bamboo tube that they hang outside the villa, and they want breakfast delivered at 8 o'clock. So at 8 o'clock, the room service waiter came, knocked on the door. Good morning, madam, room service. And the villas there have a raised dining pavilion outdoors, and an area similar to this indoors. And some people prefer to eat in the air conditioning, and some people prefer the table. So the waiter said, would you like to have your room service in your room or at the dining pavilion? She said, oh, please set it up there. And she had ordered her breakfast at 8 o'clock, but we had obviously woken her up. And so she said, please set it up and just knock on the door again when it's all ready. So we went and readied the table, laid the table with the linens, and laid it out all nicely, and then knocked on her door, and she came out, and the waiter did everything properly. Pulled out her chair, gave her a napkin, lifted the cloche off the breakfast, and said, your breakfast, madam. And she said, oh, thank you very much indeed. And he said, you are welcome, madam, but my name is Made, not Indeed. True story.
Oh God! Well, yeah, that's very humbling.
yeah, very cute actually.
It's very cute. Yeah, and how to insist this also self-confidence in the people. Like,
I think
to make a mistake, but be easy with that.
Yeah, so it was a very fun thing to watch in Lombok when it happened, because when we were the first 5-star hotel on the island, and we were really trying to create a real spirit of hospitality that was different, that was never seen. And when Oberoi Lombok opened in 1997, it opened to all kinds of accolades. It was on covers of magazines, and we were getting rave reviews. And it was very unfortunate about the Asian monetary crisis and then those riots, because it really slowed things down on Lombok. But it was really interesting to watch the staff, young staff who had very little exposure to foreign tourists, and it was very interesting to watch the waitresses start to get more brave using makeup, starting to change their hairstyles as they saw the guests wearing different hairstyles. Then suddenly, you know, on their day off, they'd come back with a hairstyle like one of the guests. And it was just very interesting to watch how that exposure affected the staff, but also the way that the simplicity of the people of that island at that time. And it happens here as well. I mean, the people in Bali are so fun-loving, and you know, the thing I love about the Balinese is they love to have a laugh, and they see the humor in situations, and sometimes it's a little bit misguided. I've seen people fall down and hurt themselves, and Balinese go ha ha ha. But I guess, you know, in a way, you know, it's better to laugh at it than be mad at it.
Yeah, sometimes yeah, it really feels awkward.
Yes,
like it's very different with our cultures, right?
Yeah.
But in another way, you cannot get angry or offended by this, because it also feels very kind, maybe childish in some ways.
In some ways, I remember one thing that was very hard for me to really understand, and being here as long as I have now, when lots of people in Asian cultures, when they deliver bad news, they do it with a smile on their face. And then a Western perspective would be like, why are you smiling? But that's a part of their culture. They don't want to share any sorrow with you. And yeah, it's I think it's one of the beautiful things about their culture.
Considering, again, all of those changes, what would be your biggest wish for Bali?
My biggest wish for Bali would be for them to get the infrastructure under control. Waste management is a big one on my list, especially water. Water waste management, and plastic use. It would be really nice to see a culture of loving the environment to become a reality. There is a concept called Trihita Karana in Bali, which is man's relationship with man, or man's relationship with God, and man's relationship with man, and man's relationship with earth. And conceptually, it's a wonderful ideology. I'd like to see it become more of a reality in people's day-to-day life. So, you know, I think for a long time, hoteliers have been the stewards of rubbish on the island, only because we want to make sure that guests who visit this island want to return and have a good experience. So even here at the beach in front of the hotel, our hotel, we have an association with all the other hotels down this beach, and together we collectively pay for the trucks to come here. And you know, there are people who have an illusion that they think the government is doing that. They're not. We're picking up the rubbish. We're keeping the beach clean. We're paying for the trucks to go to Suwon with the rubbish and wait in line. So yeah, that for me is really where I think Bali, that's my wish for Bali, is that people also start policing each other. I know where I'm from in the States, the beaches are very vital to our economy. I come from a place called Cape Cod. And if a person saw another person littering, they would say something. And one thing that maybe is a weakness in the culture here is people don't like to call each other out. If you see somebody doing wrong, they don't say, hey, you shouldn't do that. I think the solution to that would be to put some police on the beach. I mean, I don't say police like police catching criminals, but somebody who will say, don't throw your rubbish there. And we've placed bamboo bins up and along the beach here. And of course, all beaches are public in Indonesia, and I'm the crazy bule. They call me the crazy bule because I'm the one that, you know, I bring my dog to the beach and I pick up after it. And if I see people having a picnic on the beach in front of the hotel, I'll very kindly point out, when you're all done, there's a bin over there. Oh, yeah, pa, thank you. And I say, they look at me, and then I tell them I work in the hotel, so I like to keep this beach clean. And they appreciate it, you know, and I think it's important that we do try to help each other do the right thing.
Right. I think it's also the way how you're saying it, right?
Yeah, of course.
How you communicate your things. Because
very important.
In the end of the day, we all have the same goal, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, John. It
Thank
was a
you.
pleasure to speak
The pleasure's
with
been
you.
all mine. I really enjoyed sharing my experience with you.
Thank you for having us here. I really hope the Oberoi will keep this amazing atmosphere.
We will.
So serious.
We'll keep the spirit alive.
Quiet and nice in the middle of
I know.
one of the most bustling areas in Bali.
It is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.